The Trump administration continued its celebration of President Trump's first 100 days with another early morning press briefing. And whereas all the other press briefings this week have focused on things like border security and the economy, today the highlight was more on policy changes, specifically fighting DEI and predatory transgenderism and that sort of stuff. You just saw some comments from White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. He lauded all of these as common sense efforts coming from the Trump administration. And quite frankly, based on surveys, polling all across the country, more than half of the nation agrees with all of this. So is President Trump talking common sense? Well, a lot of people think so. I want to bring in right now Dr. Jennifer Bauwens. She, of course, is the director of the Center for Family Studies here at FRC. She, as much as anyone, knows the answers to these type of questions and the issue at large. She has worked extensively as a clinician providing trauma-focused treatment to children in foster care and behavioral health settings, and also to adults who have experienced interpersonal traumas like sexual abuse and assault and the like. Dr. Bauwens, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's good to be with you, Jody.
Well, first of all, let me get your overall reactions to the statements that came out of the White House today with regard to the whole fight against this radical gender ideology. Isn't it indeed a return, it seems, at least to common sense?
Yeah, who knew that we'd have to have a big return to common sense? But, you know, I love how the president always talks about we're going to be winning. And this is one issue where the battle is worth fighting for, and we are winning. And this is such a refreshing change of speech coming from the White House after all of us enduring the last 4 years.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah, I wanted to get your comments yesterday. I'm sure you're all over this, but the Trump administration's Department of Health and Human Services released a very significant report backing what many of us, yourself included, have been holding to, that there's no strong or plausible evidence at all that supports the effectiveness of so-called gender-affirming care. Can you kind of take that report and, first of all, Jennifer, tell us the importance of it, but then just kind of unpack it for us? What did this report say?
Yeah, so this report, like many of the other systematic reviews that have come out of Europe, from our counterparts over there who've been doing just so-called gender-affirming care for years. So they have a lot more data to work with. And they've all kind of backed away based on the research and also from clinical experience. And so while during the Biden years, while we were moving full steam ahead, despite these reviews coming out of Europe, you know, a lot of us were raising red flags saying, you know, the studies have major methodological errors to them. They don't show that there's a good, strong connection between doing these surgeries and physiological interventions, which if you're not familiar, that includes use of puberty blockers, so you're blocking normal puberty. It includes using the opposite sex's hormones in much larger doses that you don't find in a biological male or female, and then in many cases removing healthy body parts. So this was all purported to reduce psychological distress by engaging in this so-called gender-affirming care. And our government, under the Biden administration, was falsely using research to scaffold around gender-affirming care. And really what this report showed, and the bottom line is basically everything that has come from Europe and what we have been talking about, that the science is just not there to support it. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. It says run from these procedures and protect. We need to protect children. And I just so appreciated the clarity of speech from Stephen Miller today, just to call out exactly what these procedures are. That it's not health care. A man cannot become a woman, and a woman cannot become a man, and any procedures to do so is really only cosmetic. You'll never be a man. A woman will never be a man, and a man will never be a woman.
Wow. Yeah, it just seems so scandalous, quite frankly, Dr. Bauwens, how this previous administration, as you referenced, misused science to cram this political ideology down the throats of Americans. And it is indeed so refreshing to see this return not only to common sense, but just plain old truth. And the clarity that you bring to the table as well matches that we've heard from the White House and Stephen Miller. So thank you for that. You referenced Europe in all of this. The Cass review is what a lot of this, as I understand, is based on. Can you kind of remind us what the Cass review is and what that found?
Yeah. So in the UK, there's a clinic called the Tavistock Clinic, which was used to offer or perform the gender-affirming care that I was talking about just a minute ago. And so what happened is just a lot of voices coming out and saying that they regret these procedures, that harm has come from these procedures. And that essentially initiated a review of the literature and really to understand, what is the risk-benefit of engaging in gender-affirming care? So what this report found, although it was, as you can imagine, widely criticized by opponents of transgender ideology, but what it found was, and it was basically looking at the science, just the methods. So if we strip away the topic and we're just looking at the methods used to cause a reduction in distress, it's no question you have to scrap this so-called intervention because it's not making a difference in what it purports to do. It's not causing psychological distress to be reduced. In some cases, as other reports have found in Sweden, the rate of suicide was much higher. So HHS looked at the Cass review, but also found that the whole suicide myth that has, again, been scaffolded around gender-affirming care to say this must happen, there's urgency, you must transition, it's false. It's a falsehood. And by the way, it's not good psychological practice. When I was going to school to be a clinician, if I had a professor who told me, you should tell your client that if they don't do X, Y, Z of your recommendation, then they're going to commit suicide. I would say bolster your malpractice insurance because the chances are likely that you're going to be sued.
Absolutely. And that in itself is so abusive.
It is.
So we've only got less than a minute. Were you at all surprised that this report came out, especially in light of how powerful the woke mob seems to be, especially in academia and the medical community?
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that we are living during an administration that has courage and is doing what they said they would do and looking at all of the science. And but also looking at the ideology and saying, how can just someone suddenly claim to be a furry or the opposite sex? And they're looking at it with common sense, and
right.
And that's really the heart behind this administration is common sense, and I think we can get a lot done by just adhering to those basic principles. And
how refreshing!
So refreshing.
How refreshing. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer Bauwens, Director of the Center for Family Studies here at FRC. Your expertise and insights deeply appreciated.
Thanks, Jody.